Shabbat Shalom. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. This emphatic declaration lies at the very center of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. It's in the middle of the book of Leviticus, which is the middle book of the 5. And in many ways it could be seen as the ultimate charge to the Jewish people. The ultimate purpose and goal of Judaism is living a holy or Jewish life. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Notice that God does not say you are a holy people because I am holy. Rather, but you shall be a holy people because I am holy. The statement implies, therefore, that we are not now holy. It implies that we are commanded to strive to become holy, or perhaps that if we fulfill our part of the contract with God, that is, if we faithfully live a Jewish life, observing the rituals and ethical teachings of our tradition, we will in fact become a holy people. But in either case, we need to do something, to strive to be holy, to faithfully observe our tradition, so that we might become holy. According to Yeshayahu Leibowitz, that was the big mistake that Korach made. In our Eitz Chaim Chumashim, if you want to take a look, it's on page 861, our commentary tells us that Leibowitz sees Korach's demagoguery exposed in his claim that all the community are holy, i.e., we have achieved our goal and there's nothing more need to be demanded of us. The Torah's position is that all the community is challenged to become holy. And here he cites the verse in Leviticus, it is a future goal, not a present boast. Several chapters later in the book of Numbers, we learn that the sons of Korach did not die. And Leibowitz pushes his interpretation one step further based on this verse, saying that this verse teaches us that such people exist in every generation, claiming that just being Jewish means they are already as close to God as they have to be. True messengers present themselves as unworthy of the task, as Moses did at the burning bush. Don't send me, I'm not worthy. You can almost be guaranteed that anyone who claims to be holy is almost certainly not. Of course, most of us don't go around saying, I'm holy, or I'm a holy person. We are not so obvious about that, but I'm sure we can all identify a person who acts as if he or she is holier than thou. And we also probably know people with various prejudices, believing that this race or that creed or this nationality is inherently inferior to our own. Some Jews, I'm sad to say, seem to believe that being Jewish is genetically superior. Goyim, non-Jews, are somehow inferior. Perhaps this idea crept into some sectors of our people as a response to the constant assaults we experienced in the diaspora over the past generations, the constant taunts that we were actually inferior to others in the countries in which we lived. But nevertheless, Leibowitz reminds us that not only is this Jewish response disgusting and even childish, it reminds me of 2 5-year-olds arguing over who is better or stronger or smarter, it's also akin to Korach's claim of being holy. And we all know what happened to him. Actually, we didn't read it this morning, but you can imagine, you remember, sort of. He got swallowed up or burned by fire. Judaism is rather designed to challenge us to try and become holy. The more we fulfill our mission, our duties, and our responsibilities to God and to making the world a better place, the closer we become to being a holy people. So it's interesting then that the Midrash imagines Korach arguing with Moses over 2 mitzvot in particular. At the end of last week's Torah portion, as I mentioned last week, we have the mitzvah of wearing fringes on the corners of your garments. One thread of those fringes is supposed to be colored with a dye called Tallit, a kind of sky blue. For centuries, we have not been dyeing our threads blue. In case yours don't have it, most of them don't still have a blue thread, because we forgot how to make that color dye. About 100 years ago, Rabbi Isaac Herzog wrote his dissertation where he argued that the dye was traditionally made from the Murex trunculus snail. And based on this research, there is in fact a company in Israel now called Patil Techelet, Thread of Blue, that produces fringes with a blue thread. And if you want to order them from Patil Techelet, you can go on the internet. Order your own and then go to another page on the internet that tells you how to tie them onto your garments, and you can do it. In any case, this Midrash imagines that Korach asked Moses if having an entire garment dyed with Tallit would exempt it from having to have the fringes on the corners with the blue thread. And Moses answered, no, you still have to have the fringes with the blue thread. Now, it's understandable that the Midrash would imagine this particular challenge to Moses. After all, as I said, it was the last chapter of last week's Torah portion, and now comes Korach and rebels, so maybe that's what his rebellion was about, this particular commandment. But then the Midrash imagines that Korach challenged Moses a second time. And he says, if a house is filled with Torah scrolls, the 5 books of Moses on parchment, rolled up, you got several of them in the house, do you still need to have the 2 small paragraphs of the Torah written on parchment and attached to the Mezuzah on the doorposts? I mean, you got whole Torah scrolls in the house. What do you need the parchments on the doorpost for? But Moses again says, no, you still need to put the parchments on the doorpost. Now that doesn't make any sense here because those commandments, as you probably know, are found in the book of Deuteronomy long after Korach is gone. So why would he be arguing about something he doesn't even know about yet? I hadn't thought about this problem until this week. Why would the Midrash single out these 2 particular mitzvot as the basis for Korach's challenge against Moses, especially since the second mitzvah hasn't even been mentioned yet? Well, first I want to dismiss what some traditional people might reply. They would say that the Midrash is based on an oral tradition that was handed down from generation to generation since the time of Moses himself, and it was passed on down for 1,000 years to the rabbis, and that's how they knew that this is what the argument was about. I just don't think we have that chain of tradition that lasted for 1,000 years orally from generation to generation. Moreover, I think the rabbis were smarter than that. I think they wanted to make an ethical point, so we have to think again and imagine what was it that caused them to want to say this was the issue at hand. So my answer, I think, is that these 2 things indicate that Korach didn't really understand the purpose of these mitzvot. He didn't understand their significance or importance. He was focused on the blue or the writing, and not why we're putting them on the doorposts or on our garments. Because both of these commandments are commandments that remind us of God's mitzvot. It said right when we were reading the Torah portion about wearing tzitzit on the corner of our garments, you should look at them and remind yourself of all of God's commandments. They're supposed to be mnemonic devices. And if you're just running around in a blue tunic, that's not going to remind you of anything. It's like a color choice. It doesn't help you. It doesn't stand out in any particular way. It's just you decided to wear a blue tunic today. But if you put fringes, which are weird, on the corners of your garments that are unnecessary, and then you specifically dye one of those fringes blue, now that sticks out. And that can then serve as a reminder to say, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do God's commandments. And similarly, having a bunch of Torah scrolls in your house doesn't really remind you of anything. Torah scrolls, after all, were just like ancient books. All books were scrolls. Lots of people have bookcases with books in them. If you don't open them, it doesn't even mean anything. And even if you do look at them on the shelves, it doesn't mean anything. You need a reminder. So you put it on the doorposts of your house, so when you go out into the world, you're reminded to be nice, to be good, to do God's will in the world about you. And then we pass by the mezuzah on the doorpost of the house when you come home, to remind you at home, you also need to be nice to your family and to take care of things at home and create a wonderful home environment. It's a mnemonic device. It's supposed to be a reminder. If it's not put on the doorpost, it won't serve its purpose. Korach was too dense to understand what this was about, and he therefore got into an argument over it. So the point of these mitzvot then is to remind us of all of God's commandments and to become the holy people that God wanted us to be, which is precisely what Korach was trying to undermine by not giving us these reminders about how to live a good life. So by doing these commandments, not only do we act as God's agents in realizing the will of God here in our world, but by our actions and our belief that these actions are indeed the will of God, we proclaim to the world that God is indeed the ultimate authority. This is what is meant to strive to be holy. This is the point that Korach did not understand. He thought we were automatically ipso facto holy because we were Jews, but he was wrong. Being holy is a lifelong goal to strive for, a condition we will never really achieve, but one we're commanded to do our best to do. And the 2 mitzvot he used to attack Moses are specifically mitzvot designed to remind us of this mission. Shabbat Shalom.